This is the Aravá Valley. This is the path the Israelites took when they left Egypt. As its topography shows, it's not exactly a valley. It is a long corridor that joins the Red Sea in the south with the Dead Sea in the north. It is part of the Great Syrian-African Fault, and it includes Israel and Jordan. There are different settlements on both sides of the border with different levels of agricultural development and population density. Kibutz Ketura is located here.
A kibbutz is a cooperative agricultural community, and there are many of them in Israel. And Israel was founded really by the kibbutz movement, and there was a historic reclaiming of the land through agriculture. And so when Kibutz Ketura was founded over 40 years ago, its idea was they were going to have agriculture here, and they did. But it's really hot, it's really sunny, and there's almost no water. There's almost no water. We get about 20 millimeters of rainfall every year. And so it's very expensive and difficult to do agriculture. So this kibbutz, which I was fortunate to be a volunteer on many years ago and then later live here 3 years ago, is very, very entrepreneurial. And while they were taught to harvest, right? They harvest dates, and we used to harvest vegetables. We were wondering, would it be possible to harvest the sun? And so this is the birthplace of the solar revolution in Israel, and also from here to our neighbors and to Africa. My name is Yosef Abramowitz, and I'm a solar pioneer in the state of Israel.
This story began one afternoon on August 20th, 2006, when Joseph arrived at the kibbutz with his wife and 5 children.
And we were in a van coming from the airport after a long day, and the sun was almost setting right over there. And we opened the air-conditioned van doors, and we're hit with this unbelievable heat. It was just it was discombobulating. And we get out, and even though the sun is just behind them, like almost dipping, it was like laser beams going like from Superman, burning these 7 people from Newton, Massachusetts. And I said to myself, oh, I'm sure the whole place must work on solar power. And the kibbutz said, nope. On the 3rd day, I was talking to people, and I said, I thought Israel was like a world leader on something to do with solar energy. And they go, yeah, in terms of technology, but no one's crazy enough to fight the government to bring it here. And I was like, I'm crazy enough to do that. And so we built a team, Ed Hoffman from Kibutz Ketura, David Rosenblatt from New Jersey, and we built a company called Aravá Power Company. It's our first solar company. And that and we set out to work, and we had to win 100 political, regulatory, and statutory battles to be able to make this happen, because it's big money and it's big industry and there's income as well for the kibbutz and for the investors.
Finally, after 5 years, they built the first field of 5-megawatt solar panels in the Middle East. Little by little, they moved forward. And although many believed it impossible and called them crazy, at present they produce 70% of daytime energy, and the goal is to reach 100% by the year 2020.
And this is the model that we gift to Israel. This is the model we gift to the world. So it was a slow buildup of a revolution, because the first fields were the hardest to do. But this field behind me, 40 megawatts in one field, 8 times the size of the medium-sized one. This alone supplies 1/3 of Eilat, the vacation city's energy during the day. Just this field, but we have many fields in the region. And there's 144,343 panels right here, and it's a perfect day today. And you see, there's no noise, there's no smoke. It's God's clean energy, and we're very proud to bring it to the region and to the world. Every country needs to be able to lower its carbon footprint very, very quickly. The climate change is increasing the severity of storms, it's increasing droughts, weather is getting more extreme, and we're releasing so much greenhouse gas emissions, mostly from power plants, but also from transportation. So every country has to do its part. Because of climate change now, the weather is less predictable, and so you want an energy mix. And so solar should be part of every country's energy mix. If you have hydro, do hydro. If you have wind, do wind. If you have biomass, agricultural waste, use that. But at this point, we all have to make the switch as quickly as possible to try to prevent the western ice shelf in Antarctica from falling into the ocean. Because if that happens, then so many of our coastal cities, we're also a lot of the poorest people tend to live in the most vulnerable area where there's storms. So we all have a moral obligation. Once you decide to have an energy mix that also includes solar, it's not that hard to do. Investors need to have a certain degree of certainty, right? There needs to be a clear program, a clear horizon. But what's amazing is that the price of solar, and this is a miraculous time, the price of solar has dropped 80% in 6 or 7 years. And so therefore, we are cheaper than natural gas in the state of Israel. That's amazing. We're certainly cheaper than diesel. Any country that is still fueling their energy grid with heavy fuel oil it's bad for the world, it's bad for the atmosphere, it's bad for the air, and it's bad economics. So it's in the interest of every government, economically, to be able to switch now to inexpensive renewable energy.
There are several ways to transform solar energy into electricity. One of them is through the photovoltaic process discovered by Alexander Edmond Becquerel, a French physicist.
Before that, everyone thought that light is just a wave. Right? Einstein believed there was a wave and a particle. And so on the sun, there are massive nuclear explosions all the time. And it releases photons. And it takes the photons traveling at the speed of light 8 minutes until it goes boom, right into one of the panels. We have the proton and the neutron, and around are the electrons. So all of a sudden, a photon comes from out of space and goes, and the electrons get all excited and they stream out, right? A stream of electrons is electricity. So boom, the photons hit the silicon cell. A stream of electrons, right, is stimulated, and it goes into wires in the back of the panels. And those small wires go to bigger wires and bigger wires. Silicon solar panels traditionally don't do well in heat. And also in the desert, there are sandstorms all the time, right? So if the sand gets on the panel, it's not producing as much electricity. So there's real challenges to build commercial scale solar field in the extreme desert. And so we've solved for those. The first thing is just a natural miracle. You feel the breeze, feel a little bit of the breeze, right? It's coming from the north down to the south. And so what's great about that is that even though it's hot out now, and this is the panel, the wind is coming this way. So there's a natural cooling effect. Coming to 90% of the time the wind goes this way, and it cools the panels to make sure that they can be efficient, because once it gets too hot, they don't work so well.
In this kibbutz, sand is not a problem, since every day when the sun begins to set, robots that work on solar energy begin to clean the panels without using water.
And so what we're able to do both on-grid, like here, or off-grid, is to be able to show the world that we can get to 100% electrification sustainable energy for all, and that's part of the UN campaign that we're proud to be part of. And so if you're in a small village, we'll show you, we built a small African village here to show what any village, whether in Latin America or Africa, can do to have power. And a lot of agriculture is dependent on water. But in most cases, in many parts of the world, you have to bring water in from somewhere else, or you have to pump it from under the ground like we do here, or you have to clean it so that it's not poisonous for plants or for people. All of that requires energy. Every country has the blessing of different kinds of energies. And so here in Israel we have natural gas. So our vision is during the day we should be completely solar, and at night we have the natural gas. It used to be coal, so the switching to natural gas is better for the environment. Still not so good, but it's better. But this is where you have to do your planning. Wind in many countries is more predictable at night, for example, right? Hydro is sometimes seasonal, but what we recommend is don't use the hydro during the day. Use the sun and have a reservoir capacity for your reservoir so that it'll only flow at night, for example. So right now in many Latin American countries, for example, the hydro is always going, right? But try to build reservoir capacity. So during the day, you're just using the sun, right? Or on a rainy or cloudy day, you let and at nighttime, you let the hydropower do it. So you want to figure out the right kind of energy mix. But solar should definitely be part of it. Also, it's now so inexpensive and no greenhouse gas emissions.
This is a demonstration village. It consists of typical African rural structures without access to electricity. Let's check out the adaptations that have been made to it so that people that live in villages such as this one can one day enjoy the benefits that electricity can provide.
So first, you see, during the day you don't need light. You just take a regular soda bottle, right? Put water in it, and it reflects the light in. And so there's enough light from that. You see there's a single solar panel over here, and we've chosen to do it so that light can come through in the in-between spots. So there's different examples of the technologies in here. You see the roof, it's two-tiered so that air can flow and smoke can leave. So that very simple and actually relatively dirty panel producing enough electricity for the LED lights. It's hard to see during the day, but that's good that it's hard to see because it means light is coming through other ways. We also have a battery storage pack here, an Israeli invention, so that you can store also for nighttime use. And then we have a weight-driven pulley that can also generate at night enough electricity for your cell phone or for the lights. Very basic things, not too expensive, but it can make a big difference in the life of a rural family. So it's one thing to have a little bit of electricity in your home for lights and cell phone charging. But what about cooking? I mean, if you look at many of the countries, people are still chopping down trees, and deforestation is one of the problems. The trees are the lungs of the planet, and they also make smoke, so it's not good for the environment, it's not good for human beings. So how can people cook without it being harmful to them and without chopping down trees? And if you're far from a city. So in my home, which is in the city of Jerusalem, okay, we get gas delivery, you know, and it comes up to the house and we just take it for granted. But if you're far away, if you're living off the grid, there's a new invention. It's an Israeli invention that was created by a graduate of the Aravá Institute here. It's home biogas. And what it is you take your leftover food, any waste, and you convert it into natural gas. So you take any waste and you push it in here. You turn it, and there's bacteria in there that take the waste and they convert it to natural gas. You can just do this in your home. And the natural gas comes into the home, and cooking with natural gas is safer than cooking with you know, coal or with wood. Not everybody has land also. Some of the poorest people will have very little space, or there's not a lot of water and you need to figure out efficient use of water. There's an Israeli startup called the Living Box where you grow all your vegetables in a box. So you can see sometimes it's different layers. Let's see what they're growing here. But it's a self-enclosed system. And you can do it at different layers so that in a very small space you're able to grow vegetables to eat, and with very, very, very little water. And that's important in many parts of the world. There are different models of this all over the world, and basically the sun is so powerful that if you concentrate, you can cook on it. And so if you just put a pot here, yeah, this is really hot. This is really hot because it just focuses the rays of the sun. And this can work almost anywhere in the world. Some places stronger, other places weaker. But instead of burning wood and chopping down trees, this should be available to everybody. So look, here's a picture of the solar field in Rwanda that we built. So this solar field is the first commercial scale solar field in sub-Saharan Africa that we built at an orphan youth village. It's me teaching the children about solar energy. And this was based on what we did here in Israel at Kibutz Ketura. And it provides 6% of Rwanda's power. Israeli drip irrigation has revolutionized agriculture. But if you have a farm and you want to use drip irrigation, you need power, right? And usually you need a high pressure of the water to go through, but that can get complicated and expensive. And so what if we can put enough pressure, use low pressure drip irrigation, and with only 3 panels making the power. So this is a demonstration site, and it's working wonderfully. You see the garden growing behind me. And so the panels are enough to pump the water up to several meters. We try to make it 3 meters high. So we're using the height to be able to push the water through, which goes through the entire garden to have vegetables. So it's an adaptation of the drip irrigation, the Israeli drip irrigation, for small scale farmers with low pressure water. Israel's a very little country, but we're filled with innovation, and we have different ecosystems. And because we're in a tough neighborhood politically, we've had to invent things to be able to sustain ourselves. We needed to be able to grow our own food, even though a lot of our country is desert. We needed access to water, even though there's almost no rainfall. And we needed to power our grid in our cities. And so we've had to figure all those things out. And those are gifts that we want to give to the rest of the world. Because there's over 1.3 billion people without energy, but they could all have energy. There's over 1 billion people without access to clean water. Well, you know what? There's water everywhere. It's either deep and you need electricity to pump it, or you need to desalinate it. And so we've shown that these technologies are accessible. And that's the message of Israel. And we give that gift. We bless all of our friends in the world with whatever blessings that we've been given.